Okay, your job is to simplify these polynomial expressions. If you have an x second multiplied by 3, you have a negative x multiplied by negative 4, and you have a 3. That's a polynomial. Put a P1 label. And then in the other parentheses, you have a negative 4x to the third, x third multiplied by negative 4, x second multiplied by 3, x multiplied by 5, and then we got 6. That's P2. Now, what is in between the P parentheses? A minus, okay? So you make that plus, and then everything inside of P2 is switched. So it goes from negative 4 to positive 4. The x second that was multiplied by positive 3, now it's multiplied by negative 3. The x multiplied by positive 5 is multiplied by negative 5. And then the 6, it's negative 6. Okay, now if I'm looking through the whole problem, what's the highest power we have the x to? X second, x constant, x third, x second, x constant. So I think it's x to the third, so I slot it. No rainbows here because it's addition, okay? Then x second, then x, then the constant, or x to the first. So x third, I do not have that in P1, but in P2 I have a positive 4. So I just put a 4 down right there. X second, we have this multiplied by 3, and we have this multiplied by negative 3. So I take positive 3 plus negative 3, that's 0. Okay, you add a positive and a negative, the same thing, you're going to get 0. I would delete that then. 0 times any letter is 0, means you can delete it. Now cross them out though. Okay, now x. I have a negative x here multiplied by a negative 4. I have an x here multiplied by a negative 5. So I'm now allowed to add the negative 4 and the negative 5. That makes negative 9. Okay, then constants. We have a positive 3 and a negative 6. Those need to be added. Negative 3. And that's your answer. Okay. Now the next problem. First off, make a P1, P2 out of this. You have a negative 1 here multiplied by x to the fifth. You put that in parentheses. That's P1. And then in P2, you have negative 9x to the fifth, positive 5x, positive 3. Okay, so in between these, you don't have a symbol, so you put them. That means an automatic multiplication. Okay. So, circle the negative 1 along with its variable, and that's just one term. So we distribute that to all of these. Okay, so negative 1 to negative 9, negative 1 to 5, negative 1 to 3. So I wrote 3 rainbows, so that's 3 multiplications. But I put the x to the fifth with the negative 1 in all 3 of the multiplications. So first I multiply to negative 9x to the fifth. Then I multiply to the positive 5x. Then I multiply it to the 3. So we take negative 1 times negative 9. That's positive 9. Okay? And then there's 2 x's, so I put x with a plus sign. It's going to be 5 plus 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. Okay? 9x to the 10th. Okay, negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Now there's 2 x's. Okay, you see them. Here's one, here's another. So I write x with a plus sign. That's how I multiply x's. I have a fifth power on that x. And the other one's to the 1 power. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So negative 5x to the 6th. The negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Now I write x down because it's there, but that's the only time it's there, so I don't put a plus. I just put the fifth power. Don't put a 1 power on that 3. 3 doesn't have a variable. It's a constant. Okay. Okay, so x10 is the highest we got to. Okay. By the way, after that's been distributed, you can cross it out, and you're done. So x to the 10th. There is no x to the 9th. There's no x to the 8th. There's no x to the 7th. The next time I come across it, it's x to the 6th. And then there is an x to the fifth, and that's it. I don't have x to the fourth, third, second, first, or any constants. So I have 9, -5, and -3. Okay. So if we have a dot and in between, we need to show some work here. No dot, you go right to your spaces. Okay. Next problem, we have y plus 6, and then that's P1, and then P2 is y minus 5. That's your P2. Okay, so the parentheses were already there, but there's nothing in between here, so that's a multiplication. Okay, so I need to see some rainbows before I do the slots. But the problem is P1, here it was just one single term that you had to distribute, the -1. Now there's two. You got a 1 with a y and a 6. Okay, so first I distribute the 1. 1y to 1y, 1y to -5. So I drew two rainbows from the 1y. Times, times. First it went to 1y, then it went to -5. Now, we're not going to figure this out yet because there's another term to distribute with the 6. 6 to 1y and 6 to -5. So I write 6 down. Now, there was two rainbows. They went underneath from the 6. Okay, so now you're ready to find the products. After you've crossed out your terms in P1 and there's nothing left to distribute, you go find what you have. So 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, now we do have y, two of them, so I put a plus sign, and that's going to be a 1 and a 1, so it's 1 plus 1, which is y to the second. 1 times -5 is -5. You write y down, but I don't put a plus, okay, and if it doesn't have a power, we're just going to leave it at y, okay. 6 times 1 is 6. I write y down, but it's only one of them, so no plus. If there's no power, I leave it at y. Then 6 times -5 is -30. You don't have any letters at all there, so you just leave it off. So y to the second is the highest you got to, followed by y to the first, followed by the constant. So y to the second I have here, I have a 1, okay. You cross that out. Y's, I have a -5 and a 6. I combine those by adding. Remember, when I slot, I'm adding. So it's 1. Then the constant is just your -30. There's your answer. As soon as you have all the slots filled in, that's your answer. Okay, next one. P1 has y with a multiplier of 4 and then a -3. And then we have y to the second, which would have a multiplier 1, y with a multiplier +8, and the constant -6. This is P2. Now there's nothing in between the parentheses, so that means I put a dot, so I don't go to my slots. I got some work to do here. So circle your terms. You circle 4 with its y, and then the -3 constant. Both of those have to be distributed. So you go 4 to 1, 4 to 8, 4 to -6. This time I made 3 rainbows. So that 4y, I write down 3 times. And then 1y to the second, 8y, and then -6. Okay. All right, now that takes care of the 4, but we have another term circled, so we go -3 to 1y to the second, -3 to the 8, -3 to the -6. So 3 more rainbows. So -3, -3, -3. And you're just timesing by the same 3 things. Y to the second, 8y, -6. So don't wimp out here, find your products. So 4 times 1 is 4. Since there are 2 y variables, I put a plus sign. And I take a 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 4y to the 3. 4 times 8 is 32. Now there's 2 y variables, so we put y with a plus sign. And that's 1 and 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So 4y to the third and 32y to the second. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. I do need to write y down, but I do not need a plus. And if it doesn't have a power, I just don't put it. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. I write y down, but not with a plus, because this is the only time it's here, so I just put a 2 there. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. I write y down, not with a plus. It's here. If it doesn't have a power, just leave the power off. The negative 3 times negative 8 is 18. Do we need to write y down? No, because there is no y. Okay. Now, what's the highest power your y made it to? A 3. So y to the third, y to the second, then y, then the constant. So y third, I've got 4 there. That's all I have. Y second, I have 32. And right here, negative 3. So I add those. 32 plus negative 3 is 29. Then y. I have negative 24 and negative 24. That does not add to 0. It only adds to 0 if one's negative, one's positive. Negative 48. And the constant is 18. Okay, there you have it. Okay, next problem. This time r is the variable. Okay, so in P1 we have an r, it'd be multiplied by negative 1, then a 7. P2 has an r to the second multiplied by a 2, and r multiplied by a negative 1, and then a negative 9. Again, times is needed. Okay, now how many terms does P1 have? Well, it's got the negative 1 with the r, and it's got the positive 7. Okay, so we need to distribute both those over the top to the other parentheses. So negative 1 to 2, negative 1 to negative 1, and negative 1 to 9. Now when writing it down, you need to write negative 1r. So you times it to the 2r to the second, you times it to the negative 1r, and then you times it to the negative 9. Now don't find those yet because that's done, but the 7 is not. Now you need to go on the bottom. You got 3 more rainbows. 7 times 2r to the second, 7 times negative 1r, and then 7 times negative 9. Now you're ready to find your products and then put them into slots. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. So I have an r variable, 2 of them, so I put a plus sign. So 1 plus 2. That's 3. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And then on r, there's 2, so you put a plus sign, and it's a 1 plus a 1. Okay? 1 plus 1 is 2. So 1r to the second. So we got negative 2r to the third, 1r to the second. Negative 1 times negative 9 is 9. Now I write r down, but I don't put a plus sign, and if it doesn't have a power, I'm just going to leave it without one. You can put a 1 if you want, but it'd be r to the 1. 7 times 2 is 14. I write r down, but I don't put a power. I just put a 2. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. I put r down, but not with a plus. So it's just going to be r. You can put a 1 if you want, but it'd just be r to the 1, which is the same as r. Now 7 times negative 9 is negative 63. We are not putting a variable because there is none. Okay, so I don't want to see anybody putting a 1. Okay, on anything. So r third, r second, r second, r constant. So r third is the highest. Then r second, then r, and then constant. So r third, you just got this first one, the negative 2. R second, you have the 1. And no, you got the 14. 1 plus 14 makes 15. Remember, you're adding. Then r, or r to the first, you have a 9 and a negative 7. So you add 9 to negative 7, that takes you to 2. Then constant, you got the negative 63. All right, now the next one. We have a y multiplied by a 1 and a 6, okay, 2 separate terms. This is P1. Now you're like, where's P2? What you do is get rid of that second power, and you put another parentheses just like it. P1 and P2 will match. So that'll be also be 1y plus 6, and it's times, okay? So now you do your times, and you want to circle that. If you have to times, you got to know what the heck you're going to draw the rainbow. So you got a 1y and a positive 6. Okay, so 1y to 1y, 1y to 6. That's two rainbows from the 1y there. Done with that, then 6 to 1y and 6 to 6. Okay, find the products, and that after they're all crossed out, that's all I need. Okay, so this is shorter. 1 times 1 is 1. You write y with a plus because there's two of them, and it'd be 1 plus 1, and that's 2. 1 times 6 is 6, and you put a y but not with a plus sign. Now if you want to put a 1, you can. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it without a power. 6 times 1 is 6, and that's going to be y without a power. 6 times 6 is 36. So y to the second's the highest you made it to. So y second would have a 1 coefficient. Y 6 plus 6 is 12, and then the constant is 36. Okay, sorry I went too fast. Y second's a 1. Y, you get 6 and 6. To make 12, and then the constant 36. Okay, next one. I got a 1n and a negative 11. Minus means that's a negative value, so that's P1, and you make P2 the exact same as P1 when you have that second power there. That's what a second power is. It's just multiplication of the same factor. Okay, so I need to see rainbows. So I got a 1n and a negative 11. We got to distribute both of them. 1n to 1n, 1n to negative 11. Then negative 11 to 1n, negative 11 to negative 11. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1. Now there's two n's. I put the plus sign in. 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay. 1 times negative 11 is negative 11. You put n, you don't put the plus sign. If it doesn't have a power, don't put a power. You can put a 1, I guess, if you want. That's negative 11. N, I don't put a plus sign because there's only a single n factor. And then negative 11 times negative 11 is positive 121. No letter. I don't even put the letter down. So I have n second, n constant. So n to the second's the starting point, then n, then constant. So n second, you got 1. N, negative 11, negative 11. So you add those. It's negative 22. You add them, and then 121 is your constant. Okay, 2y plus 5 to the second power. So I got y multiplied by 2, then a positive 5. Okay, two separate terms, not like terms. So that's P1. Then to make P2, you get rid of the second. That's P2. So 2y plus 5. Okay, so my two separate terms are the y multiplied by 2 and the 5. Okay, so we got to distribute. So 2 to 2, 2 to 5. Two rainbows times the 2 with the y, then times the 5. Then 5 to 2y, 5 to 5. Okay, now you find your 4 answers. That doesn't mean you have 4 slots, so 2 times 2 is 4. I got 2 letter y's, so I put a plus sign. I put 1 powers, so I know what I'm adding. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 5 is 10. You put your y factor down. It doesn't get a plus sign because there's only a single y factor. I'm going to leave it without a power. If you want to put a 1, you can. Y and y to the first mean the same thing. That's going to be the same thing. 5 times 2 is 10, then the y factor, and then 25, you don't write the variable. Okay, y second, y constant. So I go y second, then y, then the constant. So y to the second is 4. y, you got a 10 and a 10, so 10 plus 10 is 20, and then 25, so you're adding the like terms now. Okay, and last problem, m minus 6, that's m multiplied by 1 and a negative 6, so that's p1 and p2, okay? So, times is between them, so you need to distribute, okay? Okay, so 1m, negative 6. Both those terms have to be distributed, so 1 to 1, 1 to 6, but it's actually 1 with m times 1m times 6. Now I have negative 6, okay, times the same two things. Basically, you can just copy these down. 1 times 1 is 1. There's two m variables. I put a plus sign. It's 1 plus 1, okay, and that's 2. 1 times 6 is 6. You put an m, but you don't put a plus sign. You just leave it without a power, or you can put a 1. Doesn't matter. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. Again, you write m, no plus. If there's no power, you can leave it without a power, or just m. Negative 6 times 6, negative 36. Okay, so m second, m constant. So m to the second's the highest I made it to. And then m, and then constant. M second's 1. M, okay. I got a 6 and a negative 6. That actually adds to 0, so that's gone, okay. And then we have negative 36.